Okay, everybody, welcome back once again to the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge noon meeting. I'm your president, Haggai Davis, and today we're going to have a fabulous speaker. Mr. Tommy Talley is going to be speaking on storytelling and frame. We're going to start off with an invocation from Maui Tachi and then the pledge and four-way test with Jill Garner.
Please join me in the invocation. Creator and sustainer of all that is or will ever be, accept our thanks for this day and all its blessings. We ask you to guide and direct our club, its leaders, and our actions. Grant that each of us may feel our responsibility to Rotary, our community, our country, and indeed all countries and people. Bless our fellowship today. Please remember those of us and our family members and all those affected by the pandemic, as well as people in Louisiana and Texas who have been affected by the recent storms. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Now, please join us in saying our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now join me in reciting the four-way test of Rotary. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Maui. Thank you, Jill. Quick announcement. I want to remind everybody that on October 7th will be our first meeting back at Drusilla. There will be a lot more details coming in the newsletter coming out next week about how we're going to have everybody back and in what grouping order and all of those things. So do pay attention. Look for the newsletter coming out. Now we'd like to have Rob Wise come on and introduce our speaker. Rob?
Thank you, Haggai. Oh, wow, look, I got a flyer, everybody, here. Wow. In terms of television production, that was a blooper. But today we're going to talk about sort of not just what happens behind the scenes, not just what happens as a viewer. We're going to talk about everything in between. We're going to talk about framing. I believe this beautiful man that is before you and about to talk today is going to share something special with us all. His name is Tommy Talley. I know him as a friend. I know him as a community leader. And really, he's the beard guy. He's the beard and the baseball cap guy. And if you don't know Tommy, well, now you do. As you can see, my friend here has an amazing shot. If we're talking about framing, look at his beautiful background and setup. All of this was prepared. But see, Tommy has a way of not just capturing the raw moments in footage. He has a way of telling a story. So today he's going to be framing up a few stories for us, maybe even dissecting what it means to be a photog, a video guy. But he has been successful in Baton Rouge as a great family man, a community leader. And today I would love to introduce you to Tommy Talley. I would say a master of storytelling. Take it away, Tommy.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tommy Talley. I own a company called Echo Tango Creative, and I was asked to give a talk to Rotary. So when they asked what I wanted to speak on, I felt that taking some of our projects and going frame by frame would be a fun way to do it in terms of storytelling and what frame is, why the frame's important, information being conveyed, whether you realize it or not. And so 3 projects today. One of which was LSU engineering that we did. Another one that we did for Adidas, which was a spoken word piece for a Major League Baseball player named Marcus Stroman. And then a piece we did for a company called Wolf and Shepherd. And so, yeah, I'll start by talking about the first frame I ever remember being obsessed with. And it was the Sports Illustrated cover where Michael Jordan had just eliminated the Utah Jazz. And here it is. But what I distinctly remember about it was when it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, wasn't so much the play where Jordan had created separation. Everyone was obsessed about the push off. What I remember spending time looking at was each and every individual face in the crowd, because this game's in Utah, and Michael Jordan, who's won plenty of games in the last second, is shooting over Byron Russell, and it looks, as if you look at almost everyone's face, they know it's over. And so I don't know if you can pull this up at any time or if we can send the link out later. And I'm not sure on our feed if you'd be able to see it at that level. But I can distinctly remember being a kid and just the obsession, not over what's in focus, but what's out of focus, and the story that every face tells. And so as we do a lot of our projects, we are always looking for the story within the story. The first video I'm going to share with you is a project we did for LSU Engineering. And this video was, we had 3 students to pick from, and we needed to pick 2. And so we basically had this kid named Josh who had been accepted to General Electric to go do a program after he graduated from LSU. And Josh was deaf. So his story included him communicating by reading lips and cued speech. And so much of his story was that I've basically been coding my whole life. And so coding is natural to me. So always enjoyed this piece because of the challenges that came with it. Obviously, Josh has a unique frame and perspective of life. And then the idea that you were going to do a marketing piece for a program with a deaf person and the communication issues that are there. So even LSU, as much as they wanted diversity in their video, much as Josh was a star student and is like all over every poster and like the resume is huge, they were very concerned of like, how do we do this? And so let's watch the video and then we can take it from there. I've got to do a jump to this. Nope, doesn't want to help me. Okay, that's full frame. All right, hopefully that looks good for everybody.
Be deaf presents a unique set of challenges, especially when it comes to education and interaction. Learning code has just been a labor of love for me. It's been a lifesaver. I use speech to read lips and turn visual cues into sound, so in a way, I've been coding my whole life. When it came time to choose a college, LSU was the perfect choice. Studying computer science at the College of Engineering will encourage you to explore possibilities, to think in ways others haven't. Leading technology companies from across the country stop by to see what we're up to. Technological growth is exponential, and coding is the future. It can be applied anywhere. Who knows, maybe even improve hockey on campus. When I graduate, I'll be working for General Electric Digital in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dedicating yourself to computer science is about more than developing code. It's about designing solutions for life.
So one of the first things that came up when we started working with Josh was that Josh had to get on a call with me and ask me, when we met in person, he had to basically tell me, he's like, Mr. Tommy, I'm really sorry, but I can't understand you because your magnificent beard is in the way, meaning that he couldn't read my lips because my mustache was too long, basically. And so that was the beginning of meeting with Josh. If we go frame by frame here, one of the most common intros into someone's life is for them to walk left to right. We read left to right, and in our particular shot here, starting wide, very much alone, very small in the frame, And that's the way we chose to make him look and feel just as his story was building. Also, he's walking right to left. We could have gone either way, and I think we shot it both ways. But ultimately, we felt that because this is a communication piece and his mode of communication is different than the norm, that walking kind of against the grain and the way we normally would go was beneficial. We use him in the frame to wipe basically the way his brain works. So we're using literally the window frames to give all the data and all the things he's thinking as he walks around the world. And that becomes a continued piece we use over and over. Josh's project was about fixing the parking issue at LSU, which is very ambitious. But that's what he was attacking. So as you see it, and if you go through some of the shots, that was kind of our just going back and forth to here's this parking issue, here's this thing, here's his world, using cued speech, using an over the shoulder, very personal, shows who he's talking to in the foreground, we start with her, but we show you what he's seeing, and then we use the reverse to show kind of that he's still seeing it this certain way, and that ultimately this is the things he's cueing off of to understand his fellow students. The voiceover was unbelievably interesting. We went to Celtic Studios, and this line right here was the only one that got us, which blew my mind because I didn't really know what we were getting into in terms of pronunciation, enunciation, the way words are said. And obviously we knew that we were going to be using captions in the video. But when we started, I was like, oh my gosh, we might not even need captions. If you listen to it, the only thing he stumbled over was technological growth is exponential, which is a mouthful, period. But I remember in particular, we actually all sat down and wrote it out. And once we wrote it out and the way it was said, since he's never heard it, he nailed it in the first pass. But as a project goes, that one was definitely one of the more interesting that we have ever tackled. And it was a huge success. The piece won all sorts of awards. I'm going to forget the girl's name that we used, but her project was super cool as well. And so, yeah, it was a series of two. It was a campaign of 2 students. And it was basically, it was built around, we collaborated with Logan Leger and Nua Perio. Josh Howard was on the team at the time, and I don't know if y'all know Josh, but he's actually in the background of one of those shots as our extra student. We'd be curious if anyone has any questions on that when we get to the end. I'm very big on Q&A. I'm going to keep going through with the videos. We'll move to Adidas next. We'll move to the Running of the Bulls. This piece is for Wolf and Shepherd. We were basically contacted by an agency called Mute 6 out of Los Angeles, and they had a client who was looking to basically sell dress shoes as the most comfortable dress shoes in the world, and the Running of the Bulls was coming up. And so the team got together. We flew one camera person and the director from LA, and the rest of the team stayed home. Our director of photography was Freddie Mintz. And let's take a look at this piece that is about shoes and only shows shoes 5 times.
Be afraid of the known, not the unknown. Forget everything to understand the following. Mad captains wanted. Revolutions daily. Sail the flim flam and discover everything is just one way of doing it. No baggage for this trip. Leave yours at home. Members of the mobocracy to the back of the bus. Run. Don't walk. Play attention. Disorder is still in order. Possibly the highest. So please, line up your notions in a disorderly fashion. They're what got you here, and what will ultimately stop you from going any further. If you're to hold on to anything, hold on to this. A lemon dog jam jar flies twice as high as jelly. Everything else will just hold you back.
So So yeah, this video came out unbelievably good. The main camera we had broke within the first 7 minutes of being there, basically, in terms of the bulls taking off, and the first group of people take off and the camera gets knocked out of someone's hands. Stand by, I have video. Sorry, that was autoplay. So yeah, I'm going to attempt to go frame by frame here and talk a bit about it because there's a lot to digest here. I'm going to have to go back though. So yeah, one of the main things here is that we start wide, as most settings do. Anytime you're introducing a story, the wide, where are we? And setting this, not that everyone would know this is Spain immediately, but you show the wide, the grandiose, the big.
Be afraid of the known.
Am I going to roll audio through here as we talk? Actually, let's see here. I'll just skim it. The first time we introduce the shoes is right here, which is pretty subtle, just like a morning shot. So we wanted to keep it, this is definitely our subject. This is our subject matter, center punched. It's early morning. Our main character, who's actually the owner of Wolf and Shepherd, is kind of going towards his battle elements, looking out to the day. There's a flash in here that online I might not be able to pull for y'all, but the bull flashes for the first time. Actually, I am going to not share that screen and go into just photo land. So let's see. Share our entire screen. How will this go? Hopefully this is big enough for everyone. I'm going to give this a shot because I can just start cueing them, I think. Yeah. Basically, we start wide. The shot I was referring to is when he's walking towards his shoes as if his weapon of choice for what's going down today. And then we see the first glimmer of the bull, which is super fast. But it's starting the foreshadowing what's to come, since we really don't know what the piece is about. Then we go wide. In terms of filmmaking, our wide is always our alone morning, looking towards the future, the brand new day. And I always really liked this shot, which Fred Mentz, the camera operator, director of photography, this piece, it's one continuous shot that we revisit multiple times and we just keep coming back to. This shot almost no one ever sees in here, and you have to go back and watch it again, but this piece uses a lot of flash, like real quick 2-frame movements, which Jordan Peck, the editor, made a really good decision, I think, to play it up, and creates a lot of interesting things to go look for, because the transition to the streets of Pamplona are him running, him and his wife, I think, looking out in the distance, and then a piece of paper on fire, which I think that was bought as stock footage, and I don't really know. It means nothing to the piece except that it gets used as like a transitional wipe to then where we pop up here. And it's real fast. It all happens within like a second and a half, and then it sits on this shot and pans through the world, which gets us in. Going frame by frame, and this piece is one of my favorite things ever because of the amount of ridiculousness that happens. This gentleman in the red hat, which no one else is wearing an outrageous hat like this, is the one dude to fall in the wrong place, which is the middle of the street. You can see on the sides over here, all these folks, there's plenty of folks hiding against the wall. There's some folks that have fallen. But then you have the gentleman in the black shirt and the red hat. It almost looks like it's scripted. Everyone else is in 100% white. And this dude is just the one down dead center. There's a dude just jumping over him who does not care at all, which going into the next few frames, it's almost like the bull follows his lead, because this is like the most empathetic bull I've ever seen in my entire life. Like every dude has jumped over him. This bull completely just veers around him. You have way more people down on the side because a few people have fallen. They're all just wiping each other out. And then from what I understand, our gentleman in the red hat did have to get medical treatment and taken to the hospital because he got hit pretty hard, which you can see what's coming for him, which is 4 bulls across the whole street, and don't think it ended very well for that it cuts back to one of our closest up shoe shots of the whole thing, which then you see these immaculate, beautiful shoes. And then it becomes our theme to start showing the shoes more. So this is revisiting our morning, him getting ready, although we intersplice it through the middle of the piece. And then as you get deeper into the video, you've got kind of the first reference to looking down at the shoes. And then Fred does a magnificent job. It's a back-to-back sequential shot, or sorry, it's one shot, but it's with him on his feet and then connecting the bull so that we had a sense of believability. It wasn't like we just showed up, wore the costume, and then ran way ahead, that there actually was danger. And so this is definitely not shot when the streets were tight in the very beginning. This is shot later. You can see how much wetter his shirt is. And they definitely went out of their way to make sure they got a connection between shoes and the actual danger. And then obviously to the shoes wiping off at the end, you're not even really sure you're watching a shoe commercial as it goes. This is just one more reference to it. Obviously, the speed at which this was shot and the fact that our camera broke immediately meant that the majority of this stuff was shot. Oh, that's amazing. I have a notification trapped on the top of it. That we were shooting on an iPhone. So a lot of this frenetic stuff is all iPhone. And then this was a pickup. So there's a shot that we go through that we finally have a clean look at the shoe in focus, splashing in a puddle of water, which is 100% not shot during the run of the bulls. It's definitely like everything's done. Everything's calmed down. We go back out, we find a puddle. Director of photography sets up on that puddle and probably has him run through it 2 or 3 times just to actually get an in focus where you can see the stitching of the shoe. Yeah, and that's that piece. So yeah, maybe I play that one again now that we talked about it. Let me stop screen share so that I can get back to video land. And Chrome tab, running of the bulls. And I need to go back. Sorry guys, I have to redo that because I did not share my audio. All right. Of course, I'm not doing that right. All right. So let's do this one more time. Now that we've talked about some details, talked about the ridiculousness, let's give it a whirl.
Be afraid of the known, not the unknown. Forget everything to understand the following. Mad captains wanted. Revolutions daily. Sail the flim-flam and discover everything is just one way of doing it. No baggage for this trip. Leave yours at home. Members of the mobocracy to the back of the bus. Run, don't walk. Play attention. Disorder is still in order. Possibly the highest. So please, line up your notions in a disorderly fashion. They're what got you here, and what will ultimately stop you from going any further. If you're to hold on to anything, hold on to this. A lemon dog jam jar flies twice as high as jelly. Everything else will just hold you back.
The most common question we get about that is, what is a lemon dog jam jar? And then flying twice as high as jelly. I think ultimately the answer to that is that our writer from San Francisco is just on drugs. I don't actually think it means anything. So going to switching gears a little bit. When we talk about frame, so frame is not always literally the camera frame. Perspective frame, framing the story. This Adidas piece we did, Marcus Stroman is the shortest major league starter in baseball. He's 5'7". He plays the game with really intense electricity. And it has the fiery personality has a lot to do with his size. He's got his personal brand is called Heart. Height does not measure heart. And so this piece was heavily based around that. It was produced for him and his social media channels, paid for by Adidas because he's an Adidas athlete. And yeah, so we basically approached it as having Zero write a poem and be Marcus Stroman. And so our writer has to take on the frame of the character. And guess this doesn't really fit our frame by frame perspective. This video actually has, our editor, Jordan Peck, did a great job taking the footage that we had. Ultimately, we had to use MLB footage, and it's more limiting than a lot of the other stuff we do. This piece ended up winning a National Gold Addy, and I give an advertising award, and I give most of that credit to the ridiculous performance of Zero Skidmore as a writer and performer. This guy's from Baton Rouge. He's a world champion. I think it was 2013. He won the world championship spoken word or slam poetry event. I forget the technical name of that event, but he had been there a lot. And that particular year he won it, and he's incredible. I'm sure a lot of you've heard him or seen him if you're in Rotary, because he's he's at the Arts Council and he does a lot of stuff in our community. And here's this piece.
By all means, keep underestimating me, and I'll keep surpassing your limited comprehension of what is possible. For example, this is not a hand, it's a time machine. Fueled by a grandmother's DNA, it blurs the line between here and after. It splits split seconds and rips stitches from catcher's mitts only halfway through the pitch. And this is not an arm, it's a lasso. It ends the chase before one foot can pick up the pace. It leaves a trace as bitter as a no-hitter must taste. This arm is an imaginative line, the shortest distance between 0 points. This stance is a blizzard. I stand up and batters can't leave home. Need to be dug out. Liquid helium in my veins, the title of marksman hidden in my name. No I in team. Hey, I am in aim. This heart is a castle. It has room enough for me to tower over expectations. I believe in myself like elders believe in progress. This heart can outstretch the neck of Loch Ness, reduce a team's dream of conquest to a hot mess. This heart beats everyone. I turn a mound into a mountain. A snow-capped hike with blue stripes. I'm the type to frighten batters who take swipes at streets of white light. I'm not the HDMH website. It invites hits. I'm the hype. I'm the sales pitch, the brand, and the movement. I'm the original and the improvement, the master and the student, the solution and the nuisance, the everyman and the superhuman. So by all means, keep underestimating me. I'm the truth, right under your nose, over your head, and through with your stereotypes.
So yeah, that's a pretty tricky editing job in terms of how much footage is out there, what we have available to us, and basically in that position, we have a conversation, an idea. We talk to Zero. Zero records his first poem on his phone, sends it to us. All this turns in about 3 hours because Zero works really fast, and then we're sitting there going like, "Oh gosh, this is powerful. Now, how do we finish the job?" And so ultimately, we don't have access to Stroman. Stroman's in Toronto, about to get traded to the New York Mets, and we just have to go dig up existing stuff and get to work. And so was very much shocked that the piece went as far as it did. We obviously knew it was really good. I think ultimately the timing was really strong. I mean, when you think about African-American players in baseball, there's very few. And I think that at the time that this awards season was going towards regionals and nationals, that you just have a lot of energy and anger on the streets about what's going on in the US. And so I think there was a certain timing of just, a black voice, a black pitcher, that edge, in marketing, which is not super common in marketing. Most folks, when they're marketing their brand, especially as large as Adidas, it doesn't get like that edgy as spoken word. We've since seen it play up a little bit. Actually, Nike did a Kobe piece about a month ago that did very much the same thing we did here, obviously much larger scale. But yeah, it's interesting. I love spoken word and video. I've done it 3 times with Zero. The first project we did was in 2010 for the World Transportation Conference, which was sponsored in New Orleans, put on in New Orleans as Veolia, which is a French transportation company, and the RTA became the first public-private partnership in the U.S. And we did a piece to welcome then Vice President Joe Biden to New Orleans, and it was Zero's spoken word about, and at that time he took on the frame of the city. So his poem was as if he was the city, and I always thought that was beautiful. And then from there we did a New Era hats commercial in a campaign that was for every flagship store, and I want to say they were in all NFL cities, so New Orleans had one. So anyway, I think we've watched enough videos and given y'all a sense of what we do. I think if the team at Rotary is up for Q&A, I'm definitely up for it.
Great. That was fascinating to see the breakdown of how you come up with the stories. There have been a few comments. Tommy Teeple did say it's fascinating. Only by seeing the video broken down frame by frame can anyone appreciate what it takes to make these videos. Very brilliant. Great job, my friend. And then Barbara Otten also heaping some praise as well, saying that you did several videos for the Alzheimer's services that shared their stories in such a way that was very authentic. And she says you're a very terrific guy to work with.
Hey, Barbara, hope you're well. Yeah, we got our start with Alzheimer's services. Honestly, like I left LA, was doing a lot of reality TV stuff, and when we came back to Baton Rouge, that was the first time anyone really gave us a chance to tell a powerful story. And so that's kind of where the story of our company kind of comes from. So always appreciated that chance.
So where did your passion, your motivation, your want to do all of these things, where did all that start for you?
I think it's fairly simple in a way, which is just a college kid didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was a photo major and photography was becoming digital. And while I really enjoyed being in a darkroom, being on the street shooting, ultimately photography looked like it was going to become a job behind a computer. And that made me super uncomfortable because everything is now photoshopped and manipulated. And I preferred the version of the analog of, shooting film, developing film, and creating in that way. I was terrible at school, so I was trying to get out of school as quick as I could. And the opportunity, so I basically am in my junior year, and a reality TV show called College Hill comes to Southern University. So that was I guess the easiest way to sum it up would be like kind of like MTV's The Real World, but BET's version on HBC campuses. And Southern was the first year. So it was a show put on by Babyface Edmonds' company. And it's Tracy Edmonds' wife who was running it. And I got on that show for 3 months, dropped out of college to take it. Was paid $300 a week, and I thought I was rich compared to what I had been doing. And basically got my hands on this stuff called, it was a Pelco system, like a security system, but what I ended up doing was running production. So in reality TV, you have these huge houses where a bunch of characters running around. And so these Pelcos you could have 12 of them controlled by 2 joysticks. And so I learned that system. The tech director of that show really liked working with me and was like, if you come to LA, I'll get you work. And so I moved to Los Angeles, and the first week I got there, I was sitting next to Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore shooting Punk'd. So I got a job on Punk'd with him, and then it was just took off. So and those days were fun because hidden camera is a blast. It's authentic, it's entertaining, it's all real. It's like super exhilarating. It's a version of live TV almost, in the sense that you really can't miss the beat. And then things just got weird because reality TV got darker and weirder. And I was still doing the robotic camera operator jobs, but like for these grandiose, like Paris Hilton's BFF in these mansions where there's 30 people living there trying to be friends with Paris Hilton, and it just got dumb and weird. And so, yeah, that's where the origin happens in understanding storytelling and medium, because you get on a reality show, that stuff is not real at all. It's very scripted in many ways. When I did Swamp People is where it really started to understand how unbelievably scripted it is. And but at that point, I could meet with any company that needed video. By 2010, 2011, any company regionally around Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, could need something, and they had a free place to put it on Facebook or throw it on YouTube. But the ability to walk into any scenario and come up with a story out of it was the 10 years of working in Los Angeles, where you could pull stories out of almost anything.
Cool. Nancy Stitch wants to know, can you address how you deliberately use color? I was struck by the color saturation in the Adidas ad.
Yeah, so the saturation in the Adidas ad is that sports and that fast movement definitely lends to that. It also, the footage, particularly with that video, is a lot of it's ripped from YouTube or MLB TV, and which we have the right to do since it was for a player's personal channel. The Major League Baseball passed a rule where there's no licensing issue as long as it's on the player's behalf. We were worried that because of Adidas's introduction to that, it would then flag that, but if somehow we got around that. And so, yeah, you basically have footage downloaded from YouTube that is not in its highest format. So this probably won't sound artistic, but it definitely was oversaturated to disguise some of that. And then, yeah, I would have to almost ask Jordan Peck in terms of when we were in there doing some of that stuff. You've got fast cuts, fast wipes, a lot of color blur. There's some film burn type looks in there when it moves. So, I think like even when you go and set your TV up, when you're watching sports, you kind of click it onto Vivid, the Vivid color version, right? Which is the green pops, the grass pops, the team colors pop, as opposed to when you're more cinematic in film, you really let those colors get muted, especially across the board. And I think, in the Pamplona one, you want the red to pop and you kind of want everything else in the rain just to fall off. So yeah, that's a good question. Color use, trying to think if we've ever had a piece that was super driven by color. I can't think of a great example right now.
Okay. We have Genevieve Silverman wants to know, how can a small business with a small budget tell their story through video?
I think that the world is getting more and more comfortable with the simplest versions of the tech, I guess is the best way. It's like you can get on a Zoom call, and if you have the proper conversation and record your screen, you can use that as marketing materials. And I think that you don't have to work in 30-second increments with the idea that I need 500,000 eyeballs on a television 60 times over a month, that I can constantly be telling my own story through LinkedIn, Facebook. I think the key for small businesses is I would encourage people to let their personal story blend over with their company story, if it's a small business, if that's possible. What I kind of try to coach people on is, what do we all do at this point? Like right when I had my first call with y'all, I went and LinkedIn stalked all of y'all, right? I wanted to know who you were and what your background was. And I'm just craving information. All the information's available. So if people are going to meet you, it's not a business card transaction anymore. They could walk out of that restaurant, that bar, read the email, and immediately on their phone, pull you up and know everything that you want them to know about you. So that's where the storytelling starts for me. And we kind of call it I treat it like a Hansel and Gretel thing. It's like you're leaving the breadcrumbs, you're leaving the trail for where you want them to be. So tell your story that way and frame it that way, and just keep pushing it out there that way. We get caught sometimes. We work in a smaller market. We want our story to be that we do the biggest and best at all times. That looks expensive to people. So we lose out on work. And there's certain times that I have to go really hard out of my way to, hey, yes, we did an Adidas piece. Yes, we've done Wolf and Shepherd. Yes, we've done this. That doesn't mean that 12 months out of the year that's what's happening at all times, right? But if we're having our say in it, we definitely aren't going to go to our website and just start throwing up every version of everything we do. We want our online persona just to show the biggest and best, because ultimately what we're tracking in terms of telling our story is opportunities to find that, because everyone needs video. We can go around any corner and find someone who needs a $3,000 video. We're always telling the story of how do we capture 6 to 10 times a year these monster projects, and then of course throughout the year we're making all sorts of video for all sorts of brands. But for us, communicating that is paramount.
So Jeff Zimmerman wants to know, when you are approached by a client to do a video, which steps do you follow as a template to make a successful video? Do you start with a plan or goals and then begin? And what type of concepts surrounding the videos? Can you take us through that process?
Sure. So it's often dictated by budget, which we're trying to get to the budget question as quickly as we can. Most people who are speaking to us at least have some sense of budget, whether that's, and we kind of keep it to, is this sub $10,000 or is it exceeding that? So, a testimonial video can be done for, $1,500 with a college kid, a DSLR, and a microphone, right? We're always having the conversation. Let's see, where's a good example? A company came to me that does backyard design, and whether it's pools or whether it's landscaping. And the first conversation for us is that market does a lot of beauty shots. By even calling us, it seems like you're probably seeking something more story driven. So let's make that decision first. Are we shooting pretty stuff, or are we telling a story? And then, so once you figure that out and you get through that, then you have to figure out what the story is. So Echo Tango, in terms of marketing ourselves as brand plus story, is, Eric Martin, my business partner, the brand guy, Tommy, Talley, Tango, the story side. We've always looked at that as the dit and the da of communication as far as Morse code goes, which is the simplest units of Morse code. They're the only single unit letters in the language in terms of the E and the T being the most commonly used. And for us, it's how do we boil this down to the simplest human emotion, right? When you're marketing, there's ways to speak to broader audiences, even though, it's an ad around a 6-year-old. Every person who would be seeing this has been 6 years old who you're talking to. So what does that feel like? What does that feel, what are those emotions you play to? So parents go through that twice. They go through it themselves, and then they have kids, and then they re-experience this from another side. So playing on emotions and finding the simplest, most boiled down version. You can get into worlds where you start drawing and painting and imagining, which I would say the Echo side of my team does all the time. I rarely play in that sandbox because I can't deal with that. I'm a documentary filmmaker by trade. So when I come in, I want to know who you are, what got you here, every detail about you. And then I want to boil you down to the simplest form of that so the world will understand you.
So Jeff Zimmerman also asked, if a young person wanted to do this type of work, what type of degree in college would be a good major to have on a resume?
I love when the college dropout gets asked about degrees. I'll be, if you came to me and you asked me as a kid, parents ask me, and I don't do it quite like this, but a young person comes to me and I go, do not go to film school unless a parent or grandparent who is very well off is paying for it. 100%. If you get into debt in our industry for the type of numbers that a lot of these schools are running, you are in such big trouble in terms of, because what you need to be doing with the tech that's out there and how cheap it is, you need to go buy the stuff, surround yourself with people who want to go get stuff done. And if you're in a city that doesn't have that energy, then move to one with it and get off your ass and go do it. That's end of story. If you want the college experience and you have the financial resources to go to a big one, like a Columbia, an NYU, a USC, that number is ridiculous. But really what you're doing is you're going to that school to make a network of friends. And if I meet a kid who's going to that, I'm like, if you know that Steven Spielberg's niece is in your class and wants to be a director, I don't care if you're the audio guy, I don't care if you're the prop master go work on whatever her film is and her passion project is. You are trying to build an infinite network so that you can get into positions to fulfill your dreams. And so that does not happen in a classroom. That happens in going out there and getting it done, building the trust and respect of people that you, as a young person, you go to war with every day to create cool stuff. And then by 30, 35, you're going to have a world of infinite connections. You've done people favors. You can call in favors. And when you have a strong vision in your head and a strong script in your hands, you have a team that'll show up for you to get it done because you served them before.
That's awesome. Ken Best wants to know, what is your business model? Do you do conventional TV ads? If not, what media outlets use your products?
We do conventional. And so it really just depends on what people are shooting. So we did a Cox Communications piece. It was one of the videos I had in queue, but it just felt like if we went too far down the rabbit hole, we'd just be showing too many. That commercial was actually over 6 figures, which is shocking when you think, but it was a national ad. And well, I won't get into budget talks, even though I could revisit that. That particular ad was a national buy. So when you get into national buys, your budget goes crazy high. And so ultimately what we find, the marketplace obviously changed 2009, 2010, 2011, where you go digital is becoming king. That those early adopters benefited from those low costs. You were definitely starting to see a pay to play model now that the Googles and the Facebooks and all that model is owning. And you definitely just can't put a video on YouTube anymore and expect an organic 10 million, especially as a brand. So it's a pay to play model. When we do stuff, we do it campaign based. The barrier to entry on TV is the cost. I mean, was in a meeting the other day, and I think the target was like 60 airs a month, but very specific to who your audience would be. That's very low in terms of how many times you're going to hit someone on the internet. But as we're seeing all that happen, when the touch points on the internet are a lot for a long time and repetitive to get a click. And then from there, once someone's clicked, how are you going to get them to click through further and keep spending time with you so that they can understand you better? So most of what we do is on the upfront of that. We're more the hook. But yeah, the model that we do is fully prepared to do across all things. So if I shoot a video for you and you have the budget to put it on TV, you should definitely do that. We shoot anything we shoot, we're shooting for 30, 15, 5, so that you have a 30, a 15, a 5 or 6 seconds so that you can use it on Instagram. So you start thinking about every digital outlet you have. The running of the bulls as an art piece was 1.5 minutes, but there's a 30-second that was the real commercial they were using as YouTube pre-roll. I don't show it a whole lot because it's not its full artistic rendition of itself. It's still effective, but it was a reuse of stuff. And that video could be cut into all sorts of portions to be used for all sorts of deliveries across all sorts of mediums. So a lot of that just depends on how big is your marketing budget and how committed are you to video. And then figuring out, but once you create something, you should definitely be dropping it in as many places as you can. And we build for that.
Cool. So the fabulous Rob Wise wants to know what role does the score or music track and effects play in your work?
It plays a big role. It's heavily budget driven. We did a campaign years ago that we spent $25,000 for the first run of the license, and then when it got used consecutive years, the license went down to $12,000. Ultimately, I think it was just around $50,000 was spent on this one song for this one campaign that had 12 videos and it used it over and over. I don't think that campaign's nearly as powerful without that song. We spend a lot of time on lower budget stuff, fishing real hard for quality tracks on some of these, there's monthly $50 a month license free type sites. It's tricky. You can tell the difference when you go to a composer site who has some library music, again, expensive. And that's not even to get us into, the original composition, one-off use, and then the price of that. In terms of Alzheimer's services, the first video we did, we had a gentleman named Peter Simone play piano and just do a super bare piano play. And I think that made that entire video. In fact, the video won a lot of awards, but the thing that on a national level kept winning stuff was his score. And I always loved that because it was just not complex. It was just piano. I think at some point we talked about like playing with a violin. When you're working with Alzheimer's services and the video is designed to be at one luncheon, not to be online, and to really pull people in emotionally, let's just say a violin's probably too powerful. You might have people leaving the room. If you watch the use of violin and you think you already have someone on the edge of tears, the violin's the deal sealer. It's over. So
That's awesome. Well, I definitely want to, thank you for sharing this information with us. It's been fascinating to hear and listen. And I know you've been to a couple of our Rotary meetings in the past. Want to continue to invite you to come back and maybe even join Rotary, be a member of Rotary with us.
it's probably about time I pull the trigger on that. I can only mooch on everyone else's for a certain amount of time.
Fair enough. So when we get back, we'll send the invite out and make sure we get you there.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
So everyone, that's our meeting for the day. Thank you very much for attending. Next week, Michael Olivier will be speaking to us about the Louisiana Business Roundtable. Want to remind everybody, mask up, be safe, and have a great day.